Welcome, everyone. We're very glad to have you. My name is Senator Terry Bryant. I represent the 58th Senate District, the district of which you are now sitting. And we're very glad to have you here. Carla actually approached my Chief of Staff, Kathy, and I several months ago through Dr. Jan and through former retired Senator Dave Luchtefeld, and asked us to hear them out, take a look at what they wanted to do, and see if we could be of assistance in that. So we met for 30 minutes or so, kind of in between events, and the presentation that Carla made was so intriguing that we wanted to be a part of what her vision is. And so I know she's going to do a PowerPoint presentation. And of course, you have the slides that are up here, the pictures that are up here, so she can give you a little better explanation of what she has planned. I didn't tell her this because I think she has some plans for where she would like to locate her vision ultimately, but we'd sure like to have her in the Waterloo or Columbia or Redbud area, also in the Illinois Metro East, right? But Carla's vision, as I understand it, is to educate individuals who might be classified from an underserved population, 18 to 25, and in STEM education, but as an adult, in a field that, as you all know, so if you're here tonight, you are already either interested in the drone field or what can happen, what the possibilities are in that field. And so that's kind of what intrigued me and got me wanting to help her. We hope to get the Illinois legislature involved. Sometimes you have to take them kicking and screaming, and I'm very good at getting them someplace kicking and screaming. They're going to be jealous that they were not here tonight, and so I hope we will have another meeting probably in Springfield. So we're going to track them down and get the attention because we do want this located in Illinois. We know how successful it is in Missouri, and I want to be able to really get in what is not really the ground floor of drone technology and in the field of education, as well as in job opportunities. It's not really the ground floor, but then it is kind of when we're talking about underserved communities. And so I don't want to take up any of Carla's time. She's an impressive lady. I'm sure she's got lots of things to say to us tonight. My role here tonight is to welcome you to the 58th Senate District, welcome you to the Metro East, and thank you for coming and taking your time tonight to listen to this presentation. So, Carla?
Thank you so much.
Good evening. So the first thing I want to address is that we've had a little bit of problems with our invitations. So I really want to reach out and say to everyone, thank you so much for contacting me last week to say, I didn't receive my invitation. So that put us fast forward. So there are people still coming, they're late, but I am so honored that you're here. I look out and there is a lot of impressive people here tonight. And what we are really wanting to do is to not just learn to fly drones, but the whole industry. It's from data collection. It's from math, science. You can't just fly a drone without understanding what you're doing. And there's a gap right now between the pilots, what the companies know, and we feel that we can train your staff and train the future pilots, but we want all of you at the table. When you think about joining a group, this is the group that I hope you want to join, because what we want to do is together have a seat at the table. We want to hear from the military. We want to hear from engineers. We want to hear from SIU, from all of you, Spire, US Steel, everybody, and hear what you're wanting. This is not just about what ASE wants to produce. We want to produce what you need. And together we can research projects. We have the best school around SIUE. Maybe St. Louis doesn't think so, but we know Southwestern Illinois, let's hear it for SIUE. Woo! And that's where the expansion will go. So tonight we're going to talk about a building that we're creating, but first I want to talk about how lucky we are to have this panel. When you talk about education, the panel that you are lucky enough to hear tonight is incredible. I've been in this industry for 7 years, and this is the most impressive group of people in this industry that I've ever seen together in one room. So I'm going to tell a funny story about the first gentleman. I belonged to the St. Louis Working Group, which was a study club for NGA for the past 4 years. And people would say, you need to meet Randy. You need to meet Randy. Okay, I'll meet Randy. So then we're on a Zoom call, and Courtney Breckenridge, who writes grants for SIUE, said, you've got to meet our rock star. And I'm saying, you got a rock star? Geospatial rock star. His name is Randy Pearson. I was like, yes, I'm going to finally meet this man. So when I met Randy, he said, I don't have time for this. And then he heard what we were doing, and he said, count me in. So Randy has a PhD from Indiana State University. He's been a professor at SIUE since 1993. Remote sensing, digital image processing, geographic information systems, physical geology, and geography. GeoMac, he is leading geospatial technology hub that is helping address both cultural and environmental issues facing the world. Randy, come on down. Are you what? You know what?
No.
All right. So our next, if you look at the agendas on the table, it says Mike Patton, and that's the general manager for US Steel in Granite City. They had an accident happen. He has been there all night long, and I will say Aspen DaCosta found out hours ago that he was going to be on this panel. So he has a PhD. He's the US Steel Area Manager, Reliability. He has 20 years of experience with automation systems such as drones and robotics. So Aspen, we thank you for filling in for Mike. Come on up and take one of the seats. So John Stubb was supposed to be the speaker. And we knew that John and I had talked a couple weeks ago, and we knew that he sits on the Spire board. And he said, Carla, they haven't called a meeting yet, so we're good. Friday, he called me and he said, Carla, it's not good, they called a meeting. So he told me to put it together in an email. He was going to send it off to the CEO of Spire. And wow, did we get lucky. The next two gentlemen, by 10:15 that morning, had committed, called me. It was very impressive. So the first one, Ryan Hyman, he's the Chief Information Officer at Spire, 2019 C-Suite Award from St. Louis Business Journal. Over the past 7 years, as $3 billion worth of acquisitions has fueled growth at Spire, it's been Vice President and Chief Information Officer Ryan Hyman who has led the effort to upgrade and integrate systems, tools, and processes to make the public utility more innovative and better for customers. Ryan, will you come on down? Craig Hoferling received his Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from the University of Missouri. Upon graduated, he started with Liquid Gas, which is now Spire. Throughout the years, he served in many roles: Vice President of Operations, Services, and Safety Management, SNN, at Spire, which is operations in 5 states and provides natural gas services to over 1.7 million customers. Spire operations include transmission, distribution, pipelines, hazardous liquid pipelines, oil production, liquefied natural gas storage, and underground natural gas storage. In addition to leading the SMS at Spire, Craig is responsible for pipeline safety compliance and integrity, operator qualification standards, damage prevention, environmental compliance, employee safety, and the right-of-way and land management. Craig? So I'm going to start this off by asking Randy to give us some background on what mapping of the United States and what's going on and what that means. I'm new to this, within 4 years just at Study Club. It's absolutely phenomenal. So Randy, can you?
So what exactly you want, mapping of what? Just what we do?
Just what you're doing and why.
Wow. So I've been in this industry for, I'm older than a lot of you in here. I'll be 62 this year. And I started my career out with NASA. I worked for NASA for 6 years at the Spatial Remote Sensing Center, then at the Space Center. And I got into remote sensing image processing then, and it's been part of what I've done for the rest of my career. I was in private industry for a couple of years, and after that, which something I really didn't enjoy that much, I came back to academia and thought I could hide, and I didn't hide very long. I started working with companies like Monsanto and Illinois Corn and Iowa Soybean Association and the state library. Started doing spatial mapping of all sorts of things. But my love has always been remote sensing, so I formed a research group called the Geospatial Mapping Applications and Research Center about 25 years ago. We're an IBHE center now, and we map virtually everything. So we're using intrametric synthetic capture radar for mapping mine subsidence areas across the state of Illinois. We're using drones. We followed Bayer around the country flying drones looking at off-target movement of herbicides. We have a project right now working with a major company looking at right-of-ways for electrification and understanding how to manage those right-of-ways much better. We have a project with an ag company right now that's I think their recent valuation was $2 billion to understand the efficacy of some of the new products across the entire U.S. So we take on, we have a new contract with NGA mapping 150K maps outside the walls of NGA at our university to create a pipeline of students going into NGA that are cartographically prepared to hit the ground running. So we have a pretty broad group of people taking on almost anything spatial. Primarily though, we do remote sensing image processing all the way from satellite down to airborne imaging systems, both from aircraft and now, the last probably 5 years, a lot of stuff with drones. And I guess I'll end it there. One of my big issues and my big challenges is I've flown enough drones to know how valuable they are, and I've flown enough drones to know how dangerous they are. I don't know how many people in here have actually had aircraft come up over a hedgerow, flying low, putting on fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides. All of a sudden you're in a dogfight with a crop duster. And that's happened so many times. I mean, just the potential impact of what goes on with drones and the safety aspect of that, I can't emphasize enough. And one of the reasons I really want to get into this is because I think what Carl's put together here is a real opportunity to not only have people take a written test on drones, but to create an opportunity for people to understand the real challenges facing this industry and creating a pipeline of qualified individuals to make real decisions in moment of crisis when these things get out of control. And they will, it's inevitable. So I'm a big proponent, but at the same time, some of what I'm driving at is safety along the way.
So
So, Aspen?
Thanks, Randy.
So-
You'd probably like to know this, that US Steel actually coined the phrase safety first right during the Carnegie era. Just wanted to throw that bit of information out there.
Nice. Love those connections.
So, Aspen, what type of inspections are you currently doing in the steel mill? And is thermal imaging any part of those inspections?
Yes, so I don't know how many of you all are familiar with the US Steel Granite City. We're the size of a mini city, right from your wastewater treatment facility to all of your manufacturing units. Iron making is a manufacturing plant by itself, and then you have the finishing, the steel making departments, and so we're a massive footprint with plenty of stacks, plenty of building structures, and also a very old facility. And I speak for just Granite City, but across the United States, you have US Steel facilities up in Gary, East Chicago, Pittsburgh, and all of these areas. And the site is a good 100-something years old. They've been before even automotives were around. So some of these buildings need inspection, and you got some ginormous assets and buildings where sending a human with, say, a lifeline inspection or just with a crane and the rest, they're vulnerable to safety risks. So have robots or even autonomous drones in place. These inspections are very easy to facilitate. We currently have structural inspections, lifeline inspections, crane inspections, and to most people, these are close to about 5 or 10 stories high. Some of the buildings are, and so to get in places where normally you wouldn't be able to send a human, it becomes much easier to actually send a drone. And drones, most of you all are familiar, are not very expensive. You can buy one from Target. These are the ones you can buy for your kids. You have the commercial applications with high-res cameras. We use thermography inspection on our drones, where we send them over substations. We have heat signatures taken on transformers and different electrical switchgear across the facility. So plenty of applications, and we're just getting started. We're actually trying to partner with, you've probably heard of Boston Dynamics, and trying to deploy them across. I know there's several military applications Boston Dynamics has actually done very well, but we have gas hazard places we're trying to marry drones as well as robots, and so we're just getting started at US Steel. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Ryan, so I'm going to ask you, one of the things when I was out in the field, what do you do with all this data? How do you manage it and keep it secure?
The irony is me talking about drones. I was telling the story earlier. My one attempt at flying a drone ended with me crashing it in my pool. So you may want to take everything I say with that qualifier. So I have the responsibility at Spire for all of our IT, and a part of that IT is data. Everything we do, from our customers to our employees, all produces some sort of a set of data. And drone technology, we have to build a platform that's scalable and secure, so as we start to receive that data coming from drone technology, that we can turn that data into information, but make sure that we're actually securing that data as it's coming in. So we're spending a lot of time, and Craig will talk about the pipeline safety, but from an IT perspective, we're spending a lot of time building platforms in the cloud through a partnership with Microsoft and their Azure platform on building data lakes and how to collect that data and then turn that data into information so we can better serve our customers, better serve our employees, better serve our regulators, so on and so forth. So data, again, we have 1.7 million customers across our footprint. Each one of those customers has a meter. They're fed by service lines, transmission lines. We have to inspect all of those lines on a regular basis. We have to collect that data and turn that data into information. So we spend a lot of time focusing on that data platform in support of the future drone technology, along with many other things.
So for those of you that aren't using drones and collecting data like this, first thing that you would want to do what's the story that you are trying to tell? Would that be accurate to say? And what you want to do is think about how you're doing those processes currently. And I mean, write everything down that it's costing you, the manpower, everything, and then you start looking at, you can call other companies, or you can start looking at a side-by-side. So you kind of got a baseline of what you're already paying. And then you look at what you can save. I mean, have you seen substantial savings using the drones?
So I'm gonna let Craig talk to that. Are you gonna talk
Okay.
about leak detection?
Well, that will be a good,
I'm
can you?
gonna hand this over to my trusty colleague,
Okay,
Craig.
and then I'm going to ask you, when you talk about what you're deciding, this seems like 5 companies, such a massive undertaking. Where do you start when you've got billions and billions of dollars company? How do you decide what is the first story that you're wanting to tell? And then how do you expand out on that?
That's a great question. And so first of all, you might be the oldest one in the room, but I'm right behind you. I'm 60. And the reason I tell you that, I mean, I've been with Spire 38 years. And that's
Oh, you're both children, I'm 67,
well, there you
static.
go. But the point I'm trying to make is, that's one of the things that just, I think, really excites me about our industry. I mean, I've seen so much change in technology, you know, with GIS and now drones and, you know, what we can do with that. So I'm very, very excited about it. So, you know, I guess the story you're trying to tell, I mean, you know, again, I handle safety for the company and, you know, some of the engineering aspects, but, you know, we work with Ryan and his team on innovation. So an idea might be, okay, let's look at drones. So let's figure out how we can use that for our industry. So we're just getting started at Spire with drones. You know, we have, I think, 6 drone pilots right now, 3 in Alabama and 3 in St. Louis. So, you know, we're just getting started. But there's so many things that we've determined we're able to do with it, and we're doing. So some of the things are, for instance, you know, all of our pipelines are on right-of-ways. Well, we have to inspect those for things like, you know, are they being overgrown by trees and vegetation? Because you got to be able to, you know, leak survey the pipelines. Are they have any stormwater erosion, so we don't have any environmental issues? So by using drones, we can see that. And, you know, really, once we put in a pipe, we need to map it through the GIS. So this might be one way to do the as-building is with the drone. So I see a lot of potential in that. So we've got that going on. We have, for instance, radio towers in Alabama. Well, to inspect those, you know, for your FCC compliance, you used to have climbers. Well, now you can use a drone to inspect that. So we're doing that in that arena. And that's really, really cool. You know, just a lot of different things that, you know, we're able to start with the drones that really is, you know, going to get us to where we want to be. Our next step really will be leak detection. You know, we have to survey all of our pipelines. You know, it's a requirement by our federal and state regulators, but it's also the right thing to do. You want to make sure you don't have any leaks on the system. So from a safety standpoint, you know, we're doing the leak surveys now, either by foot or by vehicle, and, you know, we can start to do it with drones. It's going to speed it up, it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be safer. Some of our pipes, for instance, you know, hang on bridges, things like that. So, you know, those are kind of difficult to do the leak surveys, but if you can do it with a drone, that's much, much safer and much more efficient. So I'm really excited with what we can do with drones and kind of where our next steps will be.
Great. Randy, that kind of feeds into your mapping. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it actually does. We're doing a lot of work actually in something very similar. And there's still a lot of questions to be answered. And it's one thing to fly a drone. It's another to look at what camera system's on it, what wavelengths you're looking at, what spatial resolution you need, how often you need to fly it, and how do you take all that data, integrate it, and actually extract information from it. There's a challenge there. And what happens is, what I'm finding in the industry right now is there's no standard. There are a lot of companies that are grabbing drones and going out and flying things and just coming up with answers that are in fact incorrect. A lot of that's happening in agriculture and environmental. A lot's happening. And so what we try to do is, what I've been doing for the last probably 10 years is holding a lot of these companies' feet to the fire and trying to set there's a better way to do this. And so we try to research what is the best way, what is the best time of year. I mean, temporal sequencing is important. If you go fly an image in July, it may not tell you what you want because the information may not manifest itself until September, October. So looking at sequencing, looking at what's the prime altitude, looking at how you patch that imagery together. If you're looking at things such as flowering plants across the landscape, and you fly high resolution drone imagery, that the wind across that's going to cause that to wave, and you can't patch that imagery together. It creates a blur and a problem. So we're trying to understand all the intricacies of what's going on in the imagery and try to find out when's drones the best, when are aircraft the best, when's satellite imagery the best, because it's scalable. And each of them present their own problem, and there's no one answer. So it's, and then the data volume, and then there's the data volume. Trying to extract information from a dozen different flights with 5 or 6 different wave bands, and the data volume is horrendous. So these are challenges to overcome, but they will be overcome for sure. But we can't act like those things are already solved because they're not. I mean, it depends what you're trying to do. How does LiDAR play in? How does thermal play in? I've flown LiDAR, thermal, multispectral, hyperspectral. I've flown it all. Each of them have their own unique challenge and their own capability, their own information-bearing product. So I guess that's the answer.
So can you all see how important it is to come together? Just in this last 20 minutes, the information and having your companies and understanding what it's going to take to put a foundation on this. And the gentleman here and, Colonel Robinson from Scott Air Force Base, engineering companies out here, hospitals, drones are going to touch every aspect of our life. So, Ryan, as drones become larger and pilots will be flying from inside beyond visual line of sight, is this a concern you need to have aerospace managers trained and on site? Do you think the FAA will be requiring this?
So I'll answer kind of generally for our industry. Safety is part of our value proposition for what we deliver to our customers, right? Whether that's safe delivery of gas, or safety in our construction crews doing work. As we continue to deploy drone technology, I would be shocked if the regulator bodies that regulate us don't get more involved with guidance from the federal government and start to impose certain requirements and regulations that we will have to adhere to. Because I do think drone technology is the way of the future. So I think at some point, I don't think it's there now, but I do think at some point in the future, the state regulators will get more involved with guidance from the federal government and put us into a place where we'll have to take some step to make sure that we have certified pilots and that we're deploying that drone technology as safely as we are our gas molecules. I can't speak to what that is today, but there's no doubt in my mind that that's going to happen in the future.
So, Aspen, I'm going to play off of that to you next on your next question. Do you think that there is a gap currently between what your managers understand and what your pilots are doing?
Absolutely. One of the things we had a recent event with a conveyor collapse at one of our sister sites up in northern Minnesota, Mintac. And while we were exploring, and a bunch of different sites from across the country, between Pittsburgh and Chicago got together, and the gap was mainly for the fact that the drone pilots were carrying on the inspections, the results were sent to the managers for approval, and the managers weren't actually establishing a flight path which was in compliance with what we wanted them to do. And since then, the legal teams got involved, saying that in the future when you have a flight path, the legal counsel would actually like to go ahead and approve. So you look at the risks and areas we actually take it in. The pilots fly, and all of our pilots are certified, by the way, even before this incident. But despite that, you talk about regulating and trying to go the extra mile instead. There's absolutely a gap. Training will fulfill that. That's something which we've actually established, that most of my engineers need to understand how to fly a drone, because we're establishing several applications. So right from our technicians to the maintenance folks to even engineers need to know. So there's a huge gap.
So is it safe to say you're going to put your managers through our management classes?
Why not? I think that's convenient and great timing.
So, go all the way down to Craig. Are you utilizing drones with methane detecting capabilities?
So, good question. So methane, the primary component of natural gas. Currently, we at Spire are not yet, because the technology is going to catch up and allow us to do that. But one thing about our industry, we're very collaborative. So we work with many natural gas operators throughout the country and throughout Canada, and members of the American Gas Association, Southern Gas Association. So this will be one way that we'll work to develop, enhance that technology. Ryan mentioned, the regulation. We are heavily regulated industry, but the regulators also see the importance of it. So they'll work with us to again, we'll be regulated, there'll be rules, things like that, but they'll try to work with us to see what is the best way to do it, what is the best way to move forward.
So, here's your tip for tonight. Ventus Geospatial, contact and have a meeting. They've gotten really good results. So, you can test that and see and get back to me and let me know if my information is accurate on that.
I will be. And the other thing I'll mention, so we have the pipeline safety, but the other thing, methane emissions, we're talking about, greenhouse gases and, trying to minimize that from an environmental standpoint. That's one of the ways we'll be able to tell, hey, where are some of our, fugitive emissions, and then we can go and address them. So, there's so much we can do with this, and it's very, very exciting.
So, Randy, is this part of where you would see mapping? Is this something where you would be able to get into that, or is this not something that you've done?
Absolutely. that's. I want to address something else first, because I think that the regulation, the safety. I started out with that, and I'm going to kind of segue to that for a second. How many people in here have actually flown a drone that you actually lost contact with and it just flew away? Anybody?
I flew in my pool.
In the pool, but you saw.
I did.
So the very first two times I was actually on site having a drone flown, we were the company was flying it. One time it actually flew away. We lost it in an ag field. We lost another drone trying to find that drone. It fell in the ag field. And the second time the drone, we lost contact. We lost contact with it. It actually crashed and exploded in the field. Those were the first two times I like that. Wasn't a great way to start. But then we started flying, and we flew from Arizona to Ohio and from Wisconsin to Alabama flying drones for Bayer. Anytime they were on the ground doing something, we were actually flying all their research plots. And what we found is there's not enough tests in the world to actually put you through all the situations you're going to go through. And that's why I think the training, like what Color's talking about, is you can take a written test, but that doesn't prepare you to try to deal with a bunch of birds of prey attacking your drone, trying to drop it, grab it, jerk it out of the sky, or you losing lock with your drone and it's now flying around a cell tower continually for 5 minutes and you can't get control of it, or a drone that's ruggedized, very heavy titanium steel body or titanium body flying literally up and out of sight, and you have no idea where it went. Or you're flying a drone, and like I said, up over and this happened 4 different times in 1 year. Out of nowhere, you get pilots coming in ag fields, and they're actually flying and spraying, and you can't hear them coming, and here they are. And how do you deal with that? So what happens is, I think the test that all the guys that fly for me, they took tests, but it didn't train them for that. And I think what happens, it's like going out and taking your driver's license. You take the test, but you don't ever have to take it. You've never been in a car. Then you go get in a car because you pass the test and you start driving on the highway. That's akin to what's going on right now. You can pass a test. You know the legal, you know the good, the bad, what you're supposed to do, the legal aspect of it, where you can't fly. But you don't understand what you're doing when you're flying it and what happens when something goes wrong. That's what this sort of thing will take care of. And that's one of the reasons I'm on board, is I think we need to regulate this a lot better. Autonomous, or let me back up, beyond line of sight. So we do a lot of work with Ameren, and we're flying Missouri Botanical Gardens. We did probably 4 or 5 times this year. And they're on a little ATV going back and forth as fast as they can, trying to follow the drone so they can keep line of sight of it. What happens when you're in an urban area and a fairly large drone, you lose control of it and it simply flies into a windshield of a car. So we have got to do a lot better job of understanding when line of sight, line of sight's a big deal. It's a big deal. And I believe in regulation. I think it needs to happen, and we need to control this thing a lot better. I was Googling the other day, just trying to understand how often airplane pilots actually see drones. And there are hundreds of sightings every month of commercial pilots actually seeing drones as they're landing or taking off. That's a problem. So how do we deal with those sorts of things? I think it's important. I think it's unquestionable the value of drones. I'm an advocate, I'm all in. But I'm also recognize that we've got to regulate this and actually create pilots that know what's going on, that understand the situation instead of just going and buying one and start flying it. So what was your question?
So,
Is this something we do research on all sorts of things. I've flown all the way from radar, I've flown thermal imagery, I've flown multispectral, I've flown hyper, so we take on challenges to try to understand, when people say it works, we take what the word, but then we test it. A lot of people can get a drone and say they're doing something, and they can, but how effective is it really? What are they really doing it? So we have test sites set up, we have some in Iowa, we have some in here in Illinois, and we test. If somebody says they can do something, prove it. Show it. We'll do the ground data and we'll go test to see how well you do it. There's a lot of misinformation that's coming out of drones. It's not the drone's problem. It's not the data's problem. It's how they're managing it, how they're processing, and how they're actually creating the information they think from that drone. I want to regulate that. I want to regulate the processing and the use of the information so that we're not providing false information to farmers, to ecologists, to whomever. I just think that that's got to be done.
I'm going to piggyback off of that. Last year alone, in 2021, there were 41 mergers and acquisitions, and there were 190 partnerships. 77% were not drone related. So that means marketing. People are marketing this, and hey, if they've got the most money to market it, you buy it. We have to get this industry as a foundation. And when you look around, we have heads of companies that can make decisions for engineering, geospatial, spire, military. We have to come together. And this study club that we create, after so many months, you in the study club will decide who becomes the executive team. And that team will represent us with the FAA. We, in Southwestern Illinois, want a seat at the table, and we want you all there. We can't do this without you. We need all of us together because it has exploded with no foundation. And we want to bring a foundation in, and we think FAA wants that too. They just are clueless how to do it. So, are you with me that we lead this? Come on, let's hear some applause on that. Let's lead it. All right. There will be a sign-up sheet in the back that I hope everyone in here tonight signs, and then we will be contacting you. So I'll continue on. Sorry on my soapbox, but that's really important that I get everybody on this. Aspen, what type of surveying are you doing when I see these big molten steel? How are these drones not burning up? I saw where there's drones now that handle 1,600 degrees Celsius. Are you using that? Are you seeing that?
We are. You mentioned about the thermography cameras and surveying across the plant. Most manufacturing industries use, you heard the acronym of wages, water, air, gas, electricity, and steam. So establishing any changes done to any of the utilities, usually we have drones track some of our Julie layouts across the facility, making sure that the maps are accurate. And so we do a lot of land surveying, right from Horseshoe Lake down to the river docks of the Mississippi, and then all the way to the manufacturing units where you mentioned about the molten steel. There's places where normally in the past we would have someone suspend from a crane or a lifeline, and you're under an ambient temperature of about 1,000 Fahrenheit and up. A drone, like you mentioned, they're built with 1,600 Fahrenheit, and we may have lost a few in the past, but again, it's an electronic device.
Better than a person, right?
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons deploying automation such as drones and robots makes all the sense for especially our industry.
Thank you. Ryan, going back and talking about the inside and training, when I think of 5 states and what you would have to do, what actually do you see? You seem to be quite a visionary, that on this internal aspect of it, you know, we're lucky enough to have the external and internal tonight. So, since you're just getting started with this, what's your next move, and how long does it take to implement from when you start the process, when you do your R&D, to where you actually start it?
Sure. I think there were a few questions in there. I'll do my best to
Me, ask more than one.
answer, and then I'll answer some random thoughts that are coming to my head. I think, one of the challenges we as an industry face is attracting talent into our organization. So I think deploying drone technology is actually an avenue for us to attract, a different type of employee that we may not have traditionally been looking for in the organization. I think it's a great opportunity for folks to get into the energy industry and start to learn about what we do and pick up a tremendously valuable skill in piloting drones. And then they can move from there into understanding how that data, use that data, turn that data into information to actually do something, right? Better serve customers, provide a safer service. So I think there's a lot of potential there. As far as putting something like that in place, we have an innovation group inside our organization, and they are tasked with making sure that we put something from concept all the way through production in a very rigorous manner. We have to make sure, obviously, we have compliance involved, safety, legal, all the different aspects of the organization. And then depending on the complexity of that product, really drives how long it takes to go from concept to production. Correct me here if I'm wrong, Craig. I think the situation that we ran into in drones, we had someone purchased a drone and said, hey, we got this great idea, we're going to start using drones. And somebody came to my office one day and said, hey, we're flying drones. I'm like, we're not flying drones. They said, no, we're flying drones. And so and this is a true story for the most part. My cybersecurity director is in the corner breathing into a paper bag because it was apparently a Chinese drone. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
We don't use Chinese drones.
We had dogs and cats living together. It was terrible. So anyways, we pulled it back. We said, okay, we got a process, right? Let's put it through the process, make sure that we do it the right way. And that's where it's at now. It's still in a pilot phase. Correct. But I would say, how far away are we to production? Craig, do you know?
Maybe a year. I don't know.
Craig guessed a year. Okay. So I think we're a ways away from full production.
I have to say, I absolutely positively respect y'all's approach.
Yes.
I mean, I can't, I applaud all by myself, the fact that you guys are taking this serious, you're thinking it through, and that's impressive. Because I don't always see a lot of that. You're not reacting, you're playing, that's awesome.
Is everyone listening to that? No reaction, don't bring anybody in from the outside and start flying drums. Well, I'm looking at the clock, and I really would like questions. And so, anyone have questions for our panel?